Welcome! I'm your host, Nancy Burdick, and this is So Many Possibilities, a new program focused on showcasing what's going on in the local fiber arts scene. Through my membership in several quilt guilds, I'm always meeting and learning from artists who work across a variety of mediums. Whether you're a maker who relishes the solitude of your own home studio or a crafter whose work thrives on the energy of a group, this series is intended to inspire you to try something new or get back to something you love doing. Our first episode focuses on some of the fiber artists in our community. I had the opportunity to visit with members of the Hopkinton Senior Center-based Vintage Quilters. Members Yvonne Powell and Deb Robbins sat down to answer questions on the group and their projects. This group meets weekly on Thursday mornings at the center.
I used to make my own clothing and my children's clothing and buying fabric constantly at the fabric place, which was the sportswear store at the time. And at one point, I decided to try to get a job there, and they accepted me, and I worked in the fabric department. And one time, there were some squares that came across our cutting table that were already pre-cut, and I decided to try my hand at making a quilt out of them. They were already pre-quilted squares, so brought them home, made 3 quilts for my children. And I guess that's what sparked my interest. It just seemed to come to me to do it. Usually I did embroidery. I had a Holly Hobby embroidery piece that I had made at one time, and I didn't know what to do with it. And I decided, I'll make a quilt out of it. So I went to a fabric store. It happened to be Peace Goods in Westboro, was the fabric store at the time. And they had Holly Hobby fabric, which went along with my embroidery piece. So I made that quilt. And from then on, I just started making baby quilts for the family members, their baby showers. And one thing led to another.
I see you have one of your creations on your lap. I've seen that one before because you, Deb, and I are members of the Marathon Quilters Guild. So can you tell me a little bit about your quilt on your lap and what it's like being a member of the Marathon Quilters?
This was one of my first interest, applique. So I made a lot of applique quilts, and my sister-in-law was an avid hand quilter, so therefore I got into doing hand quilting. This took me a very long time to make because of the hand quilting and all the handwork on it, but it was enjoyable to do. As far as Marathon Quilters, I joined the guild because my sister-in-law again encouraged me to join a guild, and that gave me the interest in making donation quilts with the guild. We had a lot of workshops and made a lot of nice donation quilts. People work on their own projects. We work on, as you can see, numerous items for the craft fair. We lay out our quilts on this table. We help each other sandwich them, which is putting the top and the batting and the backing together. Right now they're pricing items for the fall sale. And we get a lot of donated fabric. That's what we use for all items that we make and donate. I think we have donated quilts, haven't we, to
Yes.
we have donated quilts too to different organizations and groups.
So every
Yes.
Thursday morning?
Every Thursday morning, 9 to 9:30 to 11:30.
That's on.
I next visited the Hopkinton Library to interview librarian Jax Miller, who heads up the Frayed Knot Fiber Arts Circle, a fairly new drop-in group at the library. This group We'll meet on the second and last Wednesdays of each month from 6:30 to 7:30 p.m. at the library.
Thank you very much, Jack, for sitting down with me. We're talking about the Hopkinton Public Library new group. Can you say it quickly for me?
The Frayed Knots Fiber Arts Circle.
Okay, so one of the things that people are going to immediately be surprised by is the term fiber arts. So can you explain what that means to you and how you created this group?
Certainly. Fiber arts is any sort of craft or art form that involves fibers. So meaning yarn or fabric or even roving, which is yarn before it's yarn, basically.
Oh, okay. All right.
So where you would take that and then spin it into yarn or into thread. Thread is another. And so there are a whole host of different crafts that are in the fiber arts, everything from quilting, either machine or hand quilting. Here it's more hand quilting, to spinning, to crochet and knitting, to nooking, which is a combination between knitting and crochet. It's basically knitting with crochet hooks. Yeah, it's really cool. There's a whole host of different things to also include mixed media art, where people are working with embroidery or cross stitch on different surfaces, different fabrics. It's a very creative, sort of all-encompassing term.
So you put out the net,
We do.
so to speak, to say, we're meeting here at the library, come and join us if you like.
Yes.
And when did you start?
So we started this less than a year ago now,
Okay.
when I came on full-time as the teen librarian, or the young adult librarian.
Okay.
I was looking for something else to have a different kind of feel for the library that offered people the ability to craft together, all ages crafting together.
Okay.
Really, anyone is welcome, anyone who can individually craft. So from ages probably about 9 or 10 all the way up to as old as you possibly would want to or could be and still be crafting, to offer our community, as well as mentorship within crafting. A lot of new folks will come in and get experience from older or more experienced crafters.
Okay.
So it's just been a really nice opportunity to offer crafting to a wider range of folks.
So you created your flyer. You
Mhm.
said we're having it. And what happened at your first meeting?
Had a whole bunch of very different crafters show up.
A variety.
A variety of crafters. It was the first time I had really ever seen someone do loom knitting.
Okay.
That was new for me, something that I had never even done myself. And so I was like, this is really unique. We had knitters and crocheters, as well as hand quilters, and a couple of folks working on embroidery. And then we even had our first brochaire, which is our term for a gentleman who is a crocheter.
Okay.
They like to
All
help
right.
brochaters.
Okay.
So it's not just a focus group, and I was shocked by the diversity within our group.
So are there regular
Mhm.
attendees? And I went on the website, and it looked as though you needed to register, but then I saw some information that says you do not need to register. So can you clear that up for me,
Yes.
so if I'm coming, I know
Mhm.
how I can be welcomed?
So there are two options. You can register, which will send you an email reminder.
Okay.
So a lot of folks like the email reminder saying, hey, we're meeting tonight.
Okay.
Or the other opportunity is you don't have to register and you can just drop in if you don't need a reminder. And a lot of our regulars don't register because they're used to the frequency of our meeting. But especially new folks who would like to receive that email reminder, they like to register.
And I came across this all on the regular page, the main page for the Hopkinton Public Library. So if anybody's looking for it, they're just going to go on to the Hopkinton Public Library website, and they're looking for the Frayed Knots Fiber Arts Circle.
Yes.
And everybody's working on their own individual project, and it's really just a social opportunity for people to craft on their own work in a group.
So yes, there are
Okay.
two components. The first component is crafting individually,
Okay?
which is pretty cool. But we also did have a bit more of a service component this last spring, or not spring, end of summer rather, for the fiber portion of Art on the Trails that the library hosted.
Okay.
So we hosted an exhibit on Art on the Trails that included work from the children's room, work from the adult department, really everywhere. but also the Fiber Arts Circle created fiber-based rain clouds to help go into our installation. And so we ended up creating almost 30 rain clouds of different fibers, and that was something that the group worked on. So normally it's just working on individual projects, but for Art on the Trails, we really wanted to incorporate a group element to our group, which
So
is
is
Fiber
that
Arts.
still on the trail, or would I just be able to find photographs of
So,
it at this point?
Yes, just photographs at this point, and
Okay.
it is on our Facebook that
Okay.
we had from the
Okay.
library, and that was in the beginning of October,
Okay.
and that lasted for 2 weeks, and then folks can look forward to that as well next year.
Oh, perfect.
Mhm.
Okay. So we're going to look on the website to find out when you're meeting, but quickly, I think it's 2 times a month.
It is. So we meet on Wednesday nights, the second and last Wednesday of the
Okay.
month. It's strange because some months have those the fifth Wednesday happens, so that's why we want to clarify.
Okay.
The last Wednesday of the month, and that meets at 6:30 to 7:30. But folks can drop in earlier. Even we meet in the Ellsworth room,
Okay.
which is one of our small conference room where we're sitting now.
Okay.
And it's really self-guided, and I'm always there as well
Oh,
to
wow.
help with projects.
I am going to drop in because I need to find out what this combination between crocheting and knitting is. I can't even remember the word you just said, but
Nooking.
nooking. So I have to
Nooking,
look
yep.
that up.
Mhm.
And I'd love to just find a little bit more out about people's passions. And it's sort of like putting cheese out and the mice come. So you put something out and you've got a group, and I love that. And I'm hoping that others who might be looking for something like that might be interested in what you've got here. So thank you so much for sitting down with
Oh,
us.
yes,
And
no
I look
problem.
forward to reading the calendar so I know the correct Wednesday to come.
Yes,
thanks.
thank you so much
Thank
as
you.
well. I
All
appreciate
right.
it.
My final sit down was with the Senior Center-based Dropped Stitch Knitters. This group meets weekly on Thursday mornings at the Senior Center as well. They work on their own projects and offer instruction and mentoring for want-to-be knitters.
Hi, my name is Barbara. Welcome to the Drop Stitch Knitters. We meet every Thursday morning, a group of us. We do all kinds of projects depending on everyone's different styles. We make blankets, quilts, socks, dishcloths, anything anybody wants to make. We are open. We welcome new beginners, people that have issues with their patterns, anything. We're here to help.
Hi, I'm Wendy, and I'm working on a joint project that we encourage new knitters to begin by knitting squares, and I volunteer to put it together.
Here's a short how-to on recycling your favorite empty chip bag into a shopping tote. I came across this really cool little bag idea at a craft fair probably 2 years ago or so and thought, you know what, I think I could make that. I think I could try that. So I looked online, found some tutorials. There are a lot of tutorials online in picture format as well as video. Watched a few and got through it and thought I'd share how I did it with you today. So today we're going to be making a bag bigger than this, but here's my made sample to show you at the start. It's made from a Werther's candy bag, some iron-on fusible vinyl, cotton fabric for a liner and handles, and a piece of scrap batting, which is what goes in between quilts. I used cotton batting, but those are the materials I used to make this, and now I'm going to take you through how to make a different size bag. So I have gone through and I have found my Tostito chips. Before we got through the bag, I dumped them all out into a Ziploc and kept this bag nice and pristine so that I could have the greatest chance of using the entire bag for my project. And when I say the entire bag, you're going to want to use the front and the back. So if you can safeguard your bag before it gets to the trash or before somebody rips it, I would suggest doing so. Other bags you can use are, little pretzel bags, candy bags, and anything that's really unique to you, or if you're going to make it as a gift, something that means something to the person that you're going to give it to. A couple of cautions though. The smaller you go, the harder it is to turn out, because once we put on this vinyl, there's going to be a stiffness to it. So think about the size of the bag that you're looking for, and also think about the purpose, because what we're going to make today has some handles like this one, and you can see how tiny these handles are. You want to make sure that it makes sense for the use that you're envisioning before you start cutting and start investing your time and fabric and materials into something that isn't going to turn out the way you were hoping. So decide on your bag and make sure that you have a front and a back. In addition to that, you're also going to need this vinyl. It's fusible or iron-on, and it comes in two different shines. There's a matte shine and a gloss shine. For the project today, I used a matte. I liked that one, and that was the first one I could find, so I bought that. But another caution, they can sell this by the yard. You can sell it in a package, or you could sell it in a roll. I would suggest looking into your interest level and buying the smallest size package they sell initially, and that was what I found was 2 yards by 15 inches, so that was good for me to start, and once I got the hang of it, I was able to get larger amounts of it in larger rolls. So you're going to need a bag, you're going to need the fusible vinyl, you're also going to need a piece of batting, because you're going to be quilting on top of this vinyl fused bag. So you put the batting on there, and you also need cotton fabric, because you're going to make a liner, and you're going to make straps or handles for your bag. So once you've assembled all those materials, then you're going to go on to cutting your bag. And as I told you, you need to have a nice pressed front of bag and back of bag. Make your dimensions, decide what size bag you're going to cut to, and make that nice, crisp, clean cut. After you've made the cut, you're going to take a piece of batting, and you're going to put that bag that you've cut onto the batting, where you're going to want to have some area around it, because you're going to cut your iron-on vinyl to be larger than your bag, and it will fuse the bag top to the batting and keep it on there. Before you've done any quilting, you need to keep it from moving, so the additional area for cut for the vinyl will keep that bag down on the batting. So make sure your batting is bigger than your candy bag, and also make sure that you have a piece for your front and back, because you're going to use both to make the front and the back of your bag. So after you've gotten your bag cut, nice and clean, same size for the front and the back, you get your fusible vinyl. I pull it off the roll here. It's kind of sticky, but you're going to pull it off the roll, and you're going to put it down here. It would be the whole piece here. And then you would take your paper back that it was rolled up on, and you're going to iron this down. Use the manufacturer's suggestion on the heat of your iron, so that you don't end up with vinyl on your iron, and you don't end up with a mess on the top of your table or your ironing board. So once you have that completely fused down, you should have something like this. Now that's the front of my bag, and I should have a second. I should have the back of my bag, and I should have them both looking like that. And once I'm ready to sew them together, they will be squared up to be the same dimensions. But for here, I like to keep it a little bit bigger, because when I put it under my sewing machine and I start doing my quilting, I like to have a little bit of extra space. So here's a sample of what you're going to do once you've got your front and back pieces fused onto the batting. You're going to take it under your machine, and like I did on here, you're going to just run a stitch along here. This is just the regular standard stitch. I just used white thread, and I tried to evenly space it going along just like that. And I did that for my top or my front of my bag, and then I started here on the back just so that I could get it going, so I'd be ready to do the tutorial. So once you have this one all the way done, you're going to trim it up. You're going to trim the bottom or the back. You're going to take these two, put them right sides together, clip them or secure them, however you need to do that, and you're going to sew down the side the bottom, and up this side with a 1/4 inch seam. Keep that nice and secure. You're going to leave the opening. You got to have the opening if you're going to use it as a bag. So just sew on 3 sides and then turn it right side out. So you should end up having a piece that looks like this, that's sewn here, here, and here. And you're going to put that aside. And just to remind you, look at how small that bag is. It's going to be hard as I turn it out to this stage. It's going to get even harder when I have a liner in it. So think about that when you're working on your first try of this project. So as I told you, this is going to have a liner. So you're going to do the same thing with cotton fabric. So make sure you cut a piece that will be the same dimensions as the outside of your bag. You're going to sew it down one side, the bottom, and up this side. Press it nicely. And when you're sewing, just a reminder, you're going to keep the right sides together, pretty sides together. Here it is. Okay, so keep it like that. Keep it with the right sides together. And the most important point I forgot to tell you is you want to leave an opening. So when you're sewing down one side and sewing down here, stop, leave about 4 or 5 inches for an opening, and then start again and continue on. That opening is going to allow us to sew the liner to the bag and then turn it all right side out. I'll show you what I mean in a minute. So make sure when you're sewing your liner, you're sewing down the sides and the bottom, but you're leaving a 4 or 5 inch opening in the bottom, okay? Next, you're going to make straps or handles for this bag, and you're going to need matching. You might have the lining that matches. You may have a different color. It's up to you. It's completely your project. So what you're going to need when you're looking for the lining fabric and the handle fabric or the strap fabric is you're going to need to have enough fabric for that liner, but you're also going to need to have about 6 inches wide of fabric. So think about that when you're looking through your fabrics. And when you're going to create this strap, you're going to take whatever width of fabric you've got for your strap. You're going to press it in half like this to get a center line, like that. Press it with a nice iron. Open it up, and then take each side and press it into that center line, like that, and then press it down like that. And that'll give you a nice strap that looks like this. Now, here's a point. This little bag would not need a handle that wide. So I needed to adjust and just did some, practicing, figuring out what size I would want to use. For my Tostito chip bag, I'm going to use the strap that is 6 inches wide, so it'll end up looking like this. And after I've got that, I'm going to open it up, and I'm going to take a very thin piece of scrap batting for cushion, for my shoulder, for cushioning. I'm going to fit it in here, fold this over, take this, press it down. I'm going to take it under my sewing machine, and I'm going to sew top stitch lines all the way down. I've done 4, 2 on each side, and I've done that for 2 straps that are exactly the same length. So these will be ready when it's time to insert the straps into the bag for sewing. So think about how wide you want your straps to be, and also think about how long. Are they going to be handles or straps? So you've got your straps, put them aside. You've got your liner set with the opening on the bottom, and you've got your bag right sides out. Now you're set to assemble it to be ready for the sewing, the final stages. So when you take your handles, here's a sample of a handle. I put mine in same distance from each side, and I clipped it just to eyeball where that is. Then I flipped it over, and I put the other handle, same distance, but instead of clipping it, I made sure it matched up, and then I took it off and tucked it in between the outside fabric and the liner fabric. And how did I do that? I tucked my bag inside my liner. The right side, I had turned that bag out, so it's right sides out, and I told you to keep the liner right sides in. So you take your bag, put it inside the liner, line it up at the top, then where you've got your straps, pin your straps in between those 2 layers like a little sandwich and pin it, because the next thing you're going to do is take it to the sewing machine and you're going to sew a 1/4 inch seam all around the top. Once you've got that sewn all around the top, remember that hole you had. You're going to reach inside and you're going to pull your bag out through that opening in the liner. And you're going to pull it all the way out so that you end up with bag here, liner here with that 4 or 5 inch opening, and the straps will be laying out on top of the outside of the bag. It's going to look like this. That liner is inside. The handles were sewn inside there, and here's the pretty side or the outside of your chip bag. Final step that you're going to need to do is top stitch around. That'll help secure the handles or straps, and it'll also keep the lining from popping in and out. So I think it's ready to gift. I'm not sure who's going to get it, but I have a feeling there's going to be some interest from a number of people. So I hope that you found something interesting in this project and it's making you think what you could do. There's so many possibilities. Thanks for watching. I hope you were inspired by some of the pieces in today's episode. If you want to learn more about any of the topics, please visit the websites and/or search for a helpful tutorial online or at a local brick-and-mortar store. Remember, there are so many possibilities.
This is Kathy Young. Our family has lived in Hopkinton for about 8 years. So a couple of years ago, my kid pushed me to do the home composting. And I reluctant doing so because of the too much extra work. Of course, I got the lectures from my kid and we started doing it. And I'm really surprised that how much trash has been reduced just by simply doing the composting. 2/3 of my trash were gone. Since then, I got into learning about and advocating for the sustainability, and I joined the Sustainable Green Committee to work alongside others, contributing into all these aspects. So I was really inspired by the new generation and welcome more young people join the efforts.